James Ginn stood before his expansive walk-in closet in his penthouse apartment, methodically removing his collection of custom-tailored Italian suits worth more than most employees' monthly salaries. His fingers lingered on the familiar fabrics before reaching past them to the back where he'd stored the carefully selected disguise: faded Levi's jeans purchased from a discount store, scuffed work boots from a thrift shop, and a navy hoodie that still carried the musty smell of its previous owner. The transformation from CEO to temporary worker had to be flawless, as it had been for the past 5 years of his Underground Boss initiative. He'd learned early in his career that the view from the top floor often missed the crucial details happening on the ground floor. Pulling on the worn hoodie, he caught his reflection in the mirror. Gone was the commanding presence of James Ginn, CEO of TechVision Enterprises, replaced by Jim Carter, newest temp hire in customer service. Even his posture changed slightly, shoulders dropping fractionally, head tilting forward in the subtle body language of someone who took orders rather than gave them. TechVision had grown exponentially under his leadership, from a modest startup in his garage to a technology giant employing thousands. But with that growth came distance, a gap between the executive suite and the factory floor that widened with each successful quarter. When he'd first implemented the annual Undercover program, his board of directors had been skeptical, arguing that it was an unnecessary risk for someone in his position. But James understood something they didn't: the real risk lay in losing touch with the very people who made TechVision's success possible. Gathering his new identity documents, crafted with meticulous attention to detail by his trusted head of security, he reviewed his cover story one last time. Jim Carter, 35, divorced, no children, previous experience in retail customer service, looking for a fresh start in the tech industry. It was close enough to his real background to feel natural, but far enough to avoid suspicion. The security team had spent weeks building this identity, creating a digital footprint that would withstand casual scrutiny. Social media accounts with years of carefully curated posts, employment records from now defunct companies, and even a credit score that reflected the struggles of an average American worker. He'd learned from his previous undercover stints that the devil was in the details. Last year, an observant employee had almost blown his cover after noticing his expensive watch. This time, everything from his knockoff smartphone to his scuffed Walmart wallet supported his persona. His executive assistant Janet had orchestrated his absence from official duties, scheduling a supposed international business trip to account for the CEO's 2-week disappearance from public view, while his chief operating officer Monica Chen would handle day-to-day operations. The company announcement had gone out yesterday. CEO James Ginn embarks on Asian market expansion tour, a convenient cover that would keep both the press and his employees from asking too many questions. As he drove his rented Honda Civic to the customer service center located in an industrial park on the city's outskirts, James reflected on his previous undercover experiences. They'd led to significant changes in company policy: the implementation of an improved health insurance plan after discovering employees struggling with medical debt, the creation of an on-site daycare facility when he realized how many workers were juggling child care issues, and the development of a comprehensive training program sparked by witnessing talented employees stuck in dead-end positions. But this year felt different. Somehow the economy had taken a downturn. Housing prices in the area had skyrocketed, and despite TechVision's competitive wages, he'd been hearing rumors of employees facing unprecedented financial struggles. Arriving at the customer service center at 5:30 a.m., deliberately early to maintain his eager new hire persona, James parked in the employee lot, avoiding the reserved spaces he'd normally use. He took a moment to observe the building. He'd commissioned its construction 3 years ago, but now he saw it through different eyes. The elegant glass facade felt somehow disconnected from the reality of the workers who would soon fill its halls. Checking his Walmart watch, another deliberate detail he noted: he had exactly 45 minutes before new hire orientation. Pulling a worn backpack from the passenger seat, he removed his employee handbook and orientation materials, all carefully weathered to look well reviewed. Inside, he also found the brown bag lunch Janet had prepared, keeping in character no executive lunches for the next 2 weeks. The security guard at the employee entrance barely glanced at his temporary ID badge, another detail his team had perfected over years of these operations. As he made his way to the orientation room, James observed the early morning cleaning crew, the maintenance staff checking systems, and the overnight shift workers preparing to head home. These were the invisible workers who kept TechVision running, the ones whose names rarely if ever appeared in company reports or board meetings. He'd chosen customer service for this year's undercover operation after noticing a troubling trend in their quarterly reports. While customer satisfaction scores remained high, employee turnover had increased by 15%, something that the HR reports attributed to market conditions. But James suspected there was more to the story. Taking his seat in the back of the orientation room, he watched as other new hires filtered in, most younger than his cover age, some looking nervous, others displaying the weary confidence of those who'd done this many times before. The orientation leader, a cheerful woman named Patricia, began her presentation with TechVision's familiar corporate video. James had approved this video himself just last year, but now, sitting among these new hires, he saw it differently. The polished images of happy employees and cutting-edge technology felt somehow hollow, disconnected from the reality of the people sitting around him. As Patricia outlined the company's benefits package, he noticed several new hires exchanging skeptical glances at the mention of the 401k match and health insurance waiting period. He made mental notes. These reactions told him more than any HR report could. Throughout the morning, James maintained his cover, carefully participating in group discussions but never drawing too much attention to himself. He'd learned from experience that the best way to observe was to become forgettable, just another face in the crowd. During the facility tour, he lingered at the back of the group, noting details he'd missed from his executive perspective: the broken vending machine in the break room, the flickering fluorescent light in corridor, see the worn carpet near the customer service floor. In trance, these small imperfections, invisible from the top floor, told a story of budget priorities and maintenance schedules that needed review. As orientation concluded, James received his workstation assignments. Section 47, desk 23. The customer service floor stretched before him, a vast landscape of cubicles, each one containing a story he was about to discover. Checking his temporary employee badge one last time, he stepped onto the floor, ready to begin his real mission, not just observing but understanding the true state of his company from the ground up. He'd chosen his disguise carefully, but the real transformation wasn't in his appearance, it was in his perspective. For the next 2 weeks, he wouldn't just be playing a role, he would be living the daily reality of his employees, learning their struggles, celebrating their successes, and hopefully discovering ways to make TechVision not just a more profitable company but a better place to work. As he settled into his workstation, James Jin, CEO of TechVision Enterprises, disappeared, completely replaced by Jim Carter, temp worker badge number 247, ready for his first day on the phones. Little did he know that this particular undercover operation would lead to discoveries that would challenge not just his understanding of his company but his entire approach to corporate leadership. The October morning air bit sharply as James made his way across the sprawling company parking lot, his breath forming small clouds in the pre-dawn darkness. The clock on his cheap phone showed 5:30 a.m., deliberately early for his second day as a temp worker. The lot was mostly empty save for a few cars belonging to the overnight shift, their headlights cutting through the fog as they prepared to head home. Movement in his peripheral vision caught his attention, something subtle enough that he might have missed it had he not been deliberately observing everything around him. Partially hidden behind a large recycling bin sat a silver Honda Civic, its windows slightly foggy from the inside. James might have dismissed it as belonging to an overnight worker taking a break, but something about the way the car was positioned, tucked away in the furthest corner of the lot, deliberately obscured from casual view, made him pause. The soft cry that pierced the morning silence unmistakably belonged to an infant. The sound stopped him in his tracks. Training from his security team screamed at him to call for assistance, but his instincts told him to wait, observe, understand. Through the condensation-covered windows he could make out movement, a figure in the driver's seat stirring as the interior light flickered on the scene before him unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, but one born of necessity rather than artistry. A young woman, probably in her late 20s, moved with practiced efficiency, transforming the cramped space into a makeshift nursery. James watched transfixed as she expertly changed a diaper in the confined space, using the dashboard as an impromptu changing table. Her movement spoke of countless mornings performing this same routine. A portable bottle warmer plugged into the car's cigarette lighter hummed softly as she prepared her baby's breakfast. The woman's face, illuminated briefly by her phone screen, sparked recognition. In James's mind, he'd spent hours studying the employee database before starting his undercover assignment. Sarah Martinez, customer service representative hired 8 months ago. Her performance metrics had stood out even in his brief review: consistently high customer satisfaction, scores perfect attendance record, multiple commendations from supervisors. The reality of what he was witnessing struck him with physical force. One of his employees, a top performer, was living in her car with an infant. The morning routine continued with military precision. Sarah transformed the back seat into a surprisingly organized living space. Diaper bag within easy reach, neatly folded clothes stored in vacuum-sealed bags to maximize space. A small battery-operated fan strategically placed for ventilation. The baby, now changed and fed, settled quietly, watching the world with curious eyes while Sarah began her own transformation. In the rear-view mirror, using a travel-sized toiletry kit and the car's dome light, she applied makeup with steady hands, smoothed her company uniform, which despite its wrinkles was immaculately clean, and twisted her hair into a neat professional bun. No one passing her in the hallways would guess where she'd spent the night. James retreated to the shadow of a nearby pillar as Sarah emerged from the car, her arms full but her movements confident. Baby carrier, diaper bag, professional briefcase. She'd mastered the art of carrying her entire life in one trip. The contrast between her circumstances and her demeanor struck him. She walked with purpose, head high, shoulders back, the bearing of someone who refused to be defined by their situation. Following at a discreet distance, James watched as she made her way to the building's side entrance where the company daycare facility was located. He felt a twist of irony, remembering how proudly he'd announced the daycare's opening 3 years ago, touting it as evidence of TechVision's commitment to working parents. The daycare worker, Jenny, if he remembered correctly, greeted Sarah and the baby with familiar warmth, suggesting this wasn't just a professional interaction but a lifeline. Coffee already waiting, a spare diaper produced from a personal stash with casual discretion. The small kindnesses of those who knew but kept her secret safe. Back in the car, Sarah had retrieved her laptop, a refurbished model at least 5 years old, connecting to the building's Wi-Fi that still reached the parking lot. James could see her screen filled with coding tutorials, evidence of someone investing in their future despite present circumstances. This discovery forced James to confront uncomfortable realities. His company prided itself on competitive salaries, benefits packages that looked impressive on paper, but clearly something was broken in the system. If a dedicated employee could excel at her job while living in such precarious circumstances. Moving closer to the car, careful to remain unseen, James noticed other details that painted a clearer picture. A small calendar taped to the dashboard marked with bill due dates, overtime shifts circled in red, a stack of library books on programming suggesting someone determined to advance their career despite overwhelming odds. The car itself, while old, was meticulously maintained, understanding that it served as both transportation and shelter. The morning sun, now rising, cast long shadows across the parking lot as more employees began arriving. Sarah's car no longer alone but still somehow isolated in its corner spot. James watched as she performed one final check of her appearance in the window's reflection, straightened her name badge, and walked toward the building's main entrance. Anyone passing her would see only another employee arriving early, ready to start their day. The weight of this discovery settled heavily on James's shoulders. As CEO, he had access to every metric imaginable: customer satisfaction scores, profit margins, market share, but nowhere in his detailed reports was there a data point for an employee sleeping in their car. His mind racing with implications, James began mentally reviewing company policies, wage structures, housing assistance programs or lack thereof, but he knew that immediate action, however well-intentioned, could do more harm than good. He needed to understand the full scope of Sarah's situation, her capabilities, her character, the circumstances that led her here. Most importantly, he needed to ensure that any help offered would preserve the dignity and determination he'd witnessed in her morning routine. Over the next few days, James would orchestrate a series of observations and tests, not just to evaluate Sarah but to understand how his company's systems had failed to catch and support an employee in crisis. As he walked toward the building staff entrance, now surrounded by arriving co-workers, James Ginn felt the weight of his CEO title more heavily than ever beneath his carefully crafted disguise. His mind was already forming plans, but first he needed to do something he hadn't done in years. He needed to listen, really listen, to the stories and struggles of his employees, starting with the woman who turned her car into a home and still showed up every day ready to give her best to the company. Watching Sarah interact with her first customer of the day, her voice professional and warm, showing no sign of her difficult morning, James realized that the true measure of his company's success couldn't be found in quarterly reports or shareholder presentations. It lived in moments like these, in the resilience of employees who faced impossible odds yet still chose to excel in their roles. He pulled out his phone and made a note using his temporary worker's cracked screen protector. Review housing assistance programs. Urgent it would be the first of many changes to come, but for now he had to maintain his cover, learn more, and ensure that when he did act it would be in a way that created lasting meaningful change, not just for Sarah but for any other employees. Facing similar struggles as the morning shift began in earnest, James took his place at his assigned workstation, but his mind kept returning to the silver Honda Civic in the corner of the parking lot and the story of determination it represented. Over the next several days James observed Sarah's daily routine with increasing admiration. Each morning followed a precisely choreographed schedule that spoke of careful planning and unwavering determination. She arrived at exactly 5:45 a.m., giving herself enough time to transform from a homeless mother into a model employee by 7 a.m. But it wasn't just her punctuality that stood out, it was her ability to excel in every aspect of her work despite her circumstances. During customer service calls, Sarah displayed a level of patience and problem-solving skills that consistently exceeded company standards. James watched as she handled a particularly difficult caller who had been transferred between departments 4 times before reaching her, where others might have shown frustration. Sarah's voice remained calm and professional. "Good morning, sir. I understand how frustrating this must be. Let's solve this together," she said before methodically working through the customer's complex technical issue. Not only did she resolve the problem, but by the end of the call the previously irate customer was praising TechVision's service. During team meetings, Sarah took meticulous notes, often staying afterward to clarify points that might help her better serve customers. She maintained a small notebook filled with technical specifications, troubleshooting procedures, and policy updates. Any spare moment between calls was spent studying this information, highlighting key details and adding her own observations. James noticed how other employees increasingly turned to her for guidance. Despite her relatively short tenure with the company, her desk became an unofficial help desk where newer representatives would gather during breaks seeking advice on handling difficult situations. What amazed him most was how she managed to maintain her professional demeanor while dealing with her personal circumstances. During one lunch break, James watched as Sarah rushed to the daycare center to feed her baby, change clothes, and return to her desk, all within her allocated 30 minutes. She ate her own lunch, a simple sandwich and apple, while handling customer calls, never missing a beat or letting her situation affect her work quality. He observed her interaction with the daycare staff, who clearly knew more about her situation than they let on. Jenny, the lead caregiver, would occasionally slip extra diapers or baby wipes into Sarah's bag with casual comments about overstocked supplies, while another staff member regularly saved leftover snacks from the children's afternoon meal service, claiming they would otherwise go to waste. These small acts of kindness were accepted with quiet gratitude but never taken for granted. Between calls, Sarah would open her laptop, positioning it carefully to hide the screen from passing supervisors. The browser tabs revealed her determination to improve her situation. Online coding tutorials, free programming courses, documentation for various programming languages. She was teaching herself to code during every spare moment. James watched as she practiced basic HTML and CSS during her breaks, occasionally muttering syntax under her breath while debugging simple programs. Her dedication to learning despite exhaustion was evident in the way she would shake herself awake during particularly challenging lessons, refusing to let fatigue derail her self-improvement efforts. What struck James most profoundly was Sarah's willingness to help others even while struggling herself. When a new employee, Lisa, broke down after a particularly harsh customer interaction, Sarah immediately stepped in, first taking over the difficult call, then spending her next break teaching Lisa techniques for handling similar situations in the future. She shared her carefully compiled troubleshooting notes, creating a copy of her most useful resources without being asked. Her generosity extended beyond work-related matters. James observed her sharing her lunch with a co-worker who had forgotten their wallet and offering to cover another's parking fee when their card was declined. These small gestures revealed someone who understood struggle intimately yet refused to let it harden her heart toward others. The contrast between her professional success and personal circumstances became even more apparent when James reviewed her performance metrics. Sarah's customer satisfaction scores were 47% above the department average. Her call resolution rate topped 92%, and she had the lowest escalation rate in the entire customer service division. These statistics would be impressive for any employee, but for someone living in their car with an infant they were nothing short of extraordinary. During team meetings, Sarah's contributions demonstrated a deep understanding of both technical aspects and customer psychology. She suggested implementing a new troubleshooting protocol that reduced average call times by 3 minutes. Her proposal, written during her breaks and refined in the early morning hours while her baby slept, showed the kind of strategic thinking usually associated with upper management. One particularly revealing moment came during a department-wide training session on a new software update. While other employees struggled with the changes, Sarah had already mastered the system. Having studied the preliminary documentation during her free time, she quietly helped those around her navigate the new interface, never drawing attention to her expertise but ensuring everyone succeeded as a team. Her resourcefulness extended to managing her precarious living situation. James noticed how she had developed a network of locations around the city where she could safely park overnight, rotating between different spots to avoid drawing attention. She knew which coffee shops offered free Wi-Fi and clean bathrooms, which libraries stayed open latest, and which 24-hour gyms had the most affordable memberships for shower access. Her entire life had been optimized for survival while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. During one late evening, as most employees were leaving, James observed Sarah's end-of-day routine. She efficiently packed up her workspace, ensuring everything was perfectly organized for the next morning, then made a quick trip to the daycare to collect her baby. Her interaction with her child revealed another side of her personality. Despite exhaustion, her face lit up with genuine joy as she held her baby close, whispering soft encouragements and sharing stories about her day. This tender moment contrasted sharply with the professional demeanor she maintained during work hours, highlighting the duality of her existence. Perhaps most impressive was her ability to maintain hope despite her circumstances. James overheard her talking to her baby during a quiet moment in the break room. "Someday, baby girl, we'll have a real home with walls and a ceiling that doesn't have wheels," she promised, her voice filled with determination. Rather than despair, she had transformed her car into more than just a shelter. It was a launching pad for a better future. Every decision, every action was calculated to move them closer to that goal, from the way she saved a portion of each paycheck, no matter how small, to how she invested her time in learning skills that could lead to advancement. Her resilience was evident in the small details, the way she maintained a spotless uniform despite not having regular access to laundry facilities, how she arrived each day looking refreshed despite sleeping in a car, her ability to remain positive and supportive of co-workers while carrying such a heavy personal burden. James watched as she handled a system-wide technical failure that affected multiple customers. Instead of panicking, she methodically documented the issues, created a temporary workaround, and communicated solutions to her team. Her handling of the crisis drew praise from supervisors who remained unaware of the far more challenging crisis she faced in her personal life. As the days passed, James began to understand that Sarah's situation wasn't just a failure of the system, it was a testament to human resilience and determination. She had turned adversity into opportunity, finding ways to excel despite circumstances that would have broken many others. Her story wasn't just about survival, it was about maintaining dignity, integrity, and professional excellence in the face of overwhelming odds. This realization would ultimately shape the changes James would implement at TechVision, but for now he continued to observe and learn from someone who had mastered the art of thriving in the midst of adversity. James sat in his rental car late one evening, carefully reviewing the notes he'd accumulated over the past week. While observing Sarah, his mind racing with possibilities, but he knew that immediate charity, however well-intentioned, could do more harm than good. He needed to understand not just Sarah's capabilities but her character. Under pressure, pulling out his secure phone, he contacted his most trusted ally in these situations, Janet, his executive assistant who had helped orchestrate his undercover operations for the past 5 years. "Janet, I need to set up something special, and this needs to stay completely confidential." He outlined his plan while watching Sarah's car in the distance. The test would need to be perfectly calibrated to reveal true character without causing unnecessary distress. The plan took shape over the next 48 hours. With meticulous attention to detail, Janet would transform into Regina Walsh, supposedly a senior recruiter from rival tech company Innovate Corporation. Every aspect of the deception had to be flawless. The business cards printed on premium stock with the competitor's logo, the LinkedIn profile carefully crafted to withstand scrutiny, the designer suit and luxury car, all chosen to project success and authority. They even rented a small office space nearby to serve as a temporary interview location if needed. James knew from his years in the tech industry that competitor recruitment was common, especially for high-performing customer service representatives, but this operation needed to appear both incredibly physically attractive and slightly suspicious to anyone with strong moral principles. The salary offer was carefully calculated $75,000 annually, exactly double Sarah's current compensation, enough to be life-changing but not so outrageous as to immediately raise red flags. The benefits package was meticulously designed to address every hardship. James had observed comprehensive health coverage that would handle all of Emma's pediatric needs, a housing assistance program offering 3 months of paid rent up front in a corporate apartment complex, and a signing bonus large enough to purchase a reliable used car. Every detail was crafted to represent a solution to Sarah's current struggles. The timing of the approach was strategically planned. Regina would intercept Sarah during her lunch break when she would be returning from the daycare center after feeding Emma. This timing served multiple purposes, catching her at a moment when her maternal responsibilities would be fresh in her mind while also ensuring privacy away from curious coworkers. The script for Regina was carefully constructed to walk a fine line, welcome warmth masking underlying manipulation. The initial conversation would focus on Sarah's impressive metrics: customer satisfaction scores, resolution rates, call handling times, all the data points that would make her an attractive recruitment target. But the real test would come in the subtle implications about sharing TechVision's proprietary information. James had Janet prepare a non-disclosure agreement with carefully worded clauses that hinted at the expectation of bringing insider knowledge to the new position. The pressure point would be time, requiring an immediate decision. Accept the offer today, start tomorrow, no time for proper notice or careful consideration. This urgency would serve as both temptation and warning sign to anyone with ethical concerns. While the obvious ethical choice might seem clear to an outside observer, James knew that for someone sleeping in their car with an infant facing another winter, the decision would be far more complex. He arranged for the conversation to be recorded through hidden cameras, not for surveillance but to capture what he suspected would be a powerful testament to character under pressure. The offer letter itself was a masterpiece of temptation, every paragraph designed to address a specific hardship he'd observed in Sarah's daily life. The housing allowance was structured to cover not just rent but utilities and basic furnishings. The healthcare coverage would begin immediately without the usual waiting period. The professional development program included coding boot camps and technical training, everything Sarah had been struggling to learn on her own. But the document also contained subtle red flags buried in the legal language: requirements about maintaining knowledge of competitor systems, obligations to provide insights about previous employer practices, clauses that any experienced professional would recognize as potentially problematic. James had the company's legal team review the document, ensuring it walked the line between attractive opportunity and ethical challenge. The physical setup was equally considered. Regina would arrive in a black Tesla Model S, projecting the success and luxury that could await the right candidate. Her appearance, jewelry, and accessories were chosen to represent the lifestyle the position could provide. While the meeting would take place in a small conference room carefully staged to feel intimate and slightly intimidating, with a hidden observation room next door allowing James to witness the interaction firsthand. The timing of the offer was deliberately planned for late in the pay period, when James knew from observing Sarah's careful budgeting that her resources would be most strained, adding additional pressure to the decision. While preparing the test, James found himself questioning his own motivations. Was he being fair, putting someone in such desperate circumstances through an ethical challenge? But he reminded himself that character revealed under pressure would be crucial for the larger plans forming in his mind. The role he was considering for Sarah would require unshakable integrity. The morning of the test, James arrived early, positioning himself in the observation room while Regina made her final preparations. They had chosen a Thursday, statistically the day when customer service representatives were most likely to feel workplace frustration after 4 days of handling difficult calls. The offer would come as a gateway to escape from both professional and personal challenges. Regina's approach would be casual but planned, intercepting Sarah as if by chance comment about impressive performance metrics that had caught corporate attention, subtle flattery about handling of difficult customers, and escalation rates, everything designed to feel natural but purposeful. The folder Regina would present was a work of art in itself: premium leather portfolio containing progressively more tempting documents, each page revealing another layer of life-changing opportunity but also increasing ethical complications. The timing of revelations carefully orchestrated to build pressure while testing responses. James watched through the one-way glass as Regina took her position, adjusting her Armani suit, projecting the perfect image of corporate success and authority. They had practiced this dozens of times, each detail refined to perfection. This wasn't just a test of Sarah's integrity, it was an opportunity to demonstrate character that could open doors far beyond a simple promotion. Other employees had been quietly observed entering the conference room throughout the morning, maintaining the illusion of a full day of recruitment interviews, preventing suspicion about Sarah being singled out. As the clock approached the designated time, James felt an unexpected tension. This test would either confirm his growing faith in Sarah's character or reveal that her circumstances had finally overwhelmed her principles. Either outcome would be understandable, but only one would align with his larger vision for both her future and the company's. He watched as Regina checked her watch one final time, smoothed her skirt, and prepared to initiate a sequence of events that would change multiple lives forever. The stakes were higher than a simple job offer. This was about identifying the kind of leadership that could transform corporate culture, about finding someone who maintained their moral compass even when the pressure to deviate was immense, about discovering if someone could hold on to their principles when offered an escape from desperate circumstances. James settled into his chair in the observation room, notepad ready. This wasn't just another undercover operation anymore. This was about potentially reshaping the future of TechVision through the choices of someone who had already demonstrated extraordinary resilience. What happened next would determine not just Sarah's future but possibly the direction of the entire company. Sarah sat in the small conference room, her hands trembling slightly as she stared at the employment contract before her. The numbers seemed to dance on the page, taunting her with their life-changing potential. $75,000 annual salary. The figure represented more than just double her current income. It represented stability, security, a real home for Emma, with walls and a ceiling that didn't have wheels. Her fingers traced the comprehensive benefits package, lingering on the healthcare coverage that would ensure Emma received all her needed pediatric care without the constant stress of calculating copays and deductibles. The housing assistance program, offering 3 months of paid rent up front in a corporate apartment complex, felt like a dream come true, an immediate escape from the cramped backseat that had been their home. But something felt wrong in the perfectly crafted offer, the urgency, the pressure for an immediate decision, the subtle yet persistent questions about TechVision's systems. Regina Walsh sat across from her, exuding success and authority in her immaculate Armani suit, her perfectly manicured nails tapping gently on the leather portfolio as she waited for Sarah's response. Sarah's mind raced with calculations. Her current bank balance haunted her. $47.81, barely enough for 3 days of formula and diapers. Winter was approaching and the nights in the car were getting colder. Emma had already developed a slight cough, the sound keeping Sarah awake with worry. She pulled out her phone, opening her banking app as if the numbers might have magically changed. The transaction history told the story of careful budgeting, every penny accounted for, every decision weighed against survival. The next paycheck wouldn't arrive for another week, and half of it was already mentally allocated to Emma's essential needs. The temptation to accept the offer felt overwhelming, but something in Regina's carefully worded questions about TechVision's proprietary software nagged at her conscience. "We need someone with fresh insights from our competitors' systems," Regina had said, her voice dropping. "Conspiratorially innovative corporation is particularly interested in your experience with TechVision's customer service protocols." Sarah thought about her current position at TechVision, remembering her interview 8 months ago when she'd been transparent about her situation, a single mother with no college degree, desperate for a chance. The HR manager had looked past her circumstances, focusing instead on her potential, her eagerness to learn, her determination to create a better life. They had taken a chance on her when other companies wouldn't even grant an interview. The daycare center flashed in her mind, Jenny's kind face as she slipped extra diapers into Emma's bag, claiming they were about to expire anyway. The maintenance worker who'd noticed her car and quietly adjusted the parking lot cameras to create a blind spot in her corner. The coffee always waiting at her desk on particularly cold mornings from co-workers who never mentioned knowing her secret. These small acts of kindness had created a support system that money couldn't buy. The offer letter seemed to grow heavier in her hands as Sarah remembered the coding tutorials she'd been studying during breaks, TechVision's Wi-Fi reaching just far enough into the parking lot to allow her late-night learning sessions. She thought about her supervisor, who never questioned why she needed so many extra shifts, instead praising her work ethic and dedication. The company had invested in her, training, encouraged her growth, provided opportunities for advancement, even if the path was longer than this shortcut being offered. Regina cleared her throat softly, clearly expecting an answer. The pressure of the moment felt suffocating. The conference room suddenly too small, too warm. Sarah stood up, needing physical movement to clear her head. She walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot, her silver Honda Civic barely visible invisible in its distant corner, the car that represented both their greatest struggle and their determined resilience. Her mind wandered to Emma's father, who had made grand promises that dissolved into manipulation and control. This offer, with its urgency, its subtle pressure, its hints about sharing company information, felt hauntingly familiar. "We have excellent childcare partners," Regina mentioned smoothly, responding to Sarah's unspoken concern about Emma. But Sarah thought about Jenkins at TechVision's daycare, who knew every detail of Emma's schedule, her favorite songs, her nap time routine, the security guard who always saved Emma's favorite snack from the vending machine when it was being restocked, the cleaning staff who would wave and make funny faces at Emma during their early morning arrival. These weren't just employees, they were family. The salary figure caught her eye again as she turned back to the table. The amount could change their lives immediately, and their nights in the car provide Emma with everything she deserved. But at what cost? The subtle implications about sharing TechVision's information felt like poison wrapped in gold. The urgency of the decision, a red flag she couldn't ignore. Sarah thought about her current team, the new hire she'd helped master the phone system last week, the colleague whose shoulder she'd cried on during a particularly difficult day, the supervisor who'd covered her shift when Emma had a fever. These weren't just co-workers, they were people who believed in her, supported her, never judging her circumstances, only encouraging her potential. Her fingers hovering over the contract, Sarah felt a clarity begin to emerge. TechVision had seen her potential when she had nothing to offer but determination and willingness to learn. They had provided not just a job but a community, a future, a path forward, even if that path was longer and harder than this tempting shortcut. Taking a deep breath, Sarah gathered the papers, carefully arranging them back in the leather portfolio. "Thank you for thinking of me," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "But I'll have to decline." Regina's perfectly maintained smile flickered for just a moment. "Surely you need time to think it over. The opportunity won't last long." Sarah stood straighter, lifting her chin in the same way she did before handling particularly challenging customer calls. "No," she replied, her voice growing stronger. "I appreciate the offer, but I won't leave TechVision this way. They took a chance on me when I needed it most. Even if I'm just a number to them, they're more than just a paycheck to me." Regina made one final attempt, highlighting the immediate benefits, the signing bonus that could transform their lives tonight. But Sarah was already heading toward the door. "I should get back to work," she said. "My break ended 5 minutes ago and I have customers waiting." Walking back to her desk, Sarah felt lighter despite turning down the solution to all their immediate problems. She knew in her heart it had been the right choice. Her integrity was the one thing she could still control in a life where so much felt beyond her grasp. Settling back into her workstation, she pulled up her next customer call, ready to give her best to the company that had given her a chance. Checking her phone, she saw a text from Jenny at daycare. Emma had just fallen asleep clutching the small stuffed animal another employee had brought her. Sarah smiled. Despite her circumstances, this was where they belonged. Even if the path forward wasn't clear, even if tonight would be another night in the car, she had maintained something more valuable than immediate comfort. She had honored the trust placed in her despite desperate circumstances. Opening her coding tutorial in a separate window, Sarah began reviewing the latest lesson. During her brief moments between calls, they might not have everything they needed yet, but they would get there the right way, her way, with hard work, determination, and uncompromised integrity. That night Sarah sat in her car, the silence broken only by Emma's soft breathing in the back seat, her mind replaying the day's events like a movie. She couldn't stop. The leather portfolio Regina had presented felt like a ghost weight in her hands. Even hours later, the numbers dancing behind her closed eyes. $75,000, healthcare benefits, immediate housing. She pulled out her worn notebook, flipping to a blank page, and began making lists, her hands shaking slightly as she wrote. Pros: for taking the offer, immediate financial security, real home for Emma, comprehensive healthcare, no more nights in the car, new furniture, proper bedroom for Emma, reliable transportation. Cons: betraying TechVision's trust, compromising integrity, uncertain job security, losing daycare staff who knew Emma, losing support network. The temperature gauge on her dashboard showed 45 degrees, forcing her to start the car briefly to run the heater. Emma stirred in her sleep, clutching the small stuffed elephant. Jenny from daycare had given her the motion triggered the car's interior light, illuminating their makeshift home. Sarah's eyes swept over their carefully organized space, every inch maximized for efficiency. Clothes in vacuum-sealed bags stacked precisely in the trunk, portable fan positioned for ventilation, Emma's things within easy reach for midnight changes, their entire life contained in a 2008 Honda Civic. Opening her laptop, the refurbished model she'd bought with her first TechVision paycheck, Sarah connected to the building's Wi-Fi signal still strong enough to reach their corner of the parking lot. A chat notification popped up from Jim, her new co-worker. "Hey, you forgot your training manual at your desk. Don't worry, I put it in your drawer. See you tomorrow." That simple message of everyday kindness brought unexpected tears to her eyes. At TechVision, she wasn't just employee number 247. She was Sarah, Emma's mom, the person who brought homemade salsa to team lunches made in the break room, microwave, the one who stayed late to help others master new software updates. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a low rumble of thunder. Emma whimpered in her sleep, and Sarah instinctively reached back to soothe her. The storm outside matched the turmoil in her heart, but something had shifted. The decision that had seemed impossible hours ago now felt clearer. Pulling out her phone, Sarah began composing an email to Regina's contact information, the words flowing more easily than she expected. "Dear Miss Walsh, thank you for the generous offer from Innovate Corporation. After careful consideration." She paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard, memories flooding back. Her first day at TechVision, nervous, terrified they would discover her situation, but determined to prove herself worthy of their chance. The HR manager, who had focused on her potential rather than her circumstances, the gradual building of relationships, small kindnesses accumulating into a support system she hadn't even realized she needed until this moment. Thunder cracked again, closer this time. Emma began to cry, fully awake now. Sarah lifted her from the car seat, cradling her close. "Baby girl, it's okay, Mama's got you," she whispered, swaying gently in the confined space. They had perfected this dance months ago: how to comfort a crying infant in a car seat, how to maintain some semblance of normal routine in abnormal circumstances. Emma's cries subsided as Sarah began their nightly ritual of stories. Once upon a time, she began, there was a princess who didn't live in a castle, but she had something better than gold or jewels. She had integrity. The word caught in her throat. Integrity. What did that really mean when you were sleeping in a car with a baby, when every day was a struggle to maintain basic necessities? Sarah opened her banking app again, staring at the balance that seemed to mock her. $47.81, hardly enough for the next week's diapers and formula. The offered signing bonus alone could change everything. Tonight they could be sleeping in a real bed in a real apartment with heat that didn't depend on running the car engine. But at what cost? Her mind wandered to the subtle questions Regina had asked about TechVision's systems, the implied expectations of bringing insider knowledge to the competitor, the urgency of the decision designed to prevent proper consideration. She thought about Jim saving her training manual, Jenkins sneaking extra snacks for Emma, the maintenance worker Miguel who pretended not to notice their presence in the parking lot late at night but always parked his truck nearby as if standing guard. These people had become more than co-workers. They were her safety net, each in their own small way helping her maintain dignity in an impossible situation. Opening her laptop again, Sarah pulled up the coding tutorial she'd been studying, Python loops and functions, swimming before her tired eyes, but she forced herself to focus. This was her real path forward, slow, difficult, requiring sacrifice, but built on a foundation of integrity and determination. The rain intensified, drumming on the car roof, creating a symphony. With Emma's returning to sleep, breathing, Sarah adjusted the blanket around them both, checking that the windows were cracked just enough for ventilation without letting in the rain. She'd learned these survival skills through trial and error, each night a lesson in adaptation and resilience. Returning to her email to Regina, Sarah finished her response with renewed conviction. "While I appreciate the generous offer, I must decline. My commitment to TechVision extends beyond financial considerations. They provided an opportunity when I had nothing to offer but determination and hard work. I cannot and will not betray that trust." Clicking send felt like releasing a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Emma stirred again, and Sarah began humming softly their favorite lullaby, the one Jenny always sang at daycare, the simple melody carrying memories of warmth, safety, community. Pulling out her notebook again, Sarah turned to her goals list, adding new entries beneath the familiar ones. Learn Python by December, master JavaScript by February, apply for technical support position in March. Each goal a step toward their future, the right way, the hard way, the way that let her look at Emma without shame. Reaching into the front seat, Sarah retrieved her TechVision employee handbook, its pages dog-eared and highlighted, evidence of her determination to excel even in customer service, a position many saw as just a stepping stone. She had turned it into a foundation for growth. Her supervisor's words from last week's performance review echoed in her mind. "Your problem-solving skills are exceptional, Sarah. You have a natural talent for understanding systems, both technical and human." These words meant more than any salary figure. They represented recognition of her abilities, not just her needs. The night grew colder, and Sarah pulled their emergency blanket closer, checking that Emma was warm enough. She thought about Regina's perfectly tailored suit, the Tesla she'd arrived in, the lifestyle being dangled hailed as temptation, but Sarah had learned the hard way that easy solutions often carried hidden costs. Opening her coding tutorial again, she forced herself to complete one more lesson even as exhaustion pulled at her edges. This was her real path to advancement, one small step at a time, built on knowledge earned, not secrets sold. A notification popped up on her phone reminding her of tomorrow's early shift. In 6 hours she would transform their car back into transportation, carefully packing away all evidence of their nighttime existence. She would dress in her carefully maintained uniform, style her hair in the gym bathroom, and arrive at her desk ready to give her best to the company that had given her a chance. Her integrity intact, her determination stronger than ever. Sarah looked at Emma, peaceful in sleep despite their circumstances. "You're teaching me more than I'm teaching you, little one," she whispered. "Sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that show us who we really are." The rain continued its steady rhythm on the roof, but inside the car Sarah felt a peace she hadn't expected. Turning down what seemed like their only chance at immediate improvement had somehow strengthened her resolve to find a better way forward. She opened a new document on her laptop and began typing ideas for improving customer service protocols, channeling her energy into constructive action rather than regret. This was who she was, someone who chose right over easy, who saw beyond immediate needs to bigger principles, who would show her daughter that character meant more than comfort. As the night deepened, Sarah settled into their familiar routine, grateful for the safety of their corner spot, the Wi-Fi that let her continue learning, the community that supported them without judgment. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but she would face them with integrity intact and determination renewed. The email arrived at 7:15 a.m. just as Sarah was settling into her workstation. "Please report to Executive Suite 1500 immediately." The message from HR made her heart skip a beat, her mind racing through possibilities. Had someone finally reported her living situation? Had her rejection of Innovate Corporation's offer somehow gotten back to management? The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt eternal, each floor bringing new waves of anxiety. She'd never been to the executive level before. Few customer service representatives had the doors open to reveal a world different from her basement-level workspace, all glass, chrome, and sweeping city views. Her worn shoes silent on the plush carpeting. A familiar face greeted her, Regina Walsh, no longer wearing Innovate Corporation's badge but rather a TechVision executive ID. Before Sarah could process this, Regina led her to a massive conference room where a single man sat at the head of the long table. "Miss Martinez, please sit down," the man said, rising with practiced grace. Sarah's world tilted on its axis as recognition hit her in waves. Jim, her co-worker who always saved her coffee, who helped new hires, who worked beside her for the past week, stood before her but transformed. Gone were the worn jeans and hoodie, replaced by an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. "But you're," she stammered. "James Jin," he finished, a gentle smile replacing his usual serious expression. "Though I've grown quite fond of being just Jim these past few weeks." Sarah sank into the offered chair, her legs suddenly weak. The pieces started falling into place. The mysterious job offer, the immediate deadline, the questions about company systems. It had all been a test. "I apologize for the deception," James continued, taking a seat closer to her, "but I needed to understand something crucial about TechVision's culture, about whether our company truly lives up to its values. You've helped me see the answer with remarkable clarity." He slid a folder across the table, not unlike the one Regina had presented yesterday, but bearing TechVision's logo. "Before you open this, I want you to understand what I observed during my time undercover." Sarah's hands trembled as he continued, "I saw an employee who arrived early every day despite sleeping in her car, who maintained perfect professionalism while caring for an infant in impossible circumstances, who chose loyalty over personal gain even when desperately in need." Her fingers traced the TechVision logo on the folder as James spoke about her customer service metrics, her problem-solving abilities, her dedication to self-improvement. "But it wasn't until yesterday, when faced with an offer that could have solved all your immediate problems, that you showed us something even more valuable, your character." The folder opened to reveal an employee assessment with her name at the top, but the position listed made her breath catch. "Director of Customer Experience Innovation." "This isn't charity," James said firmly, noting her expression. "This is recognition of talent, dedication, and integrity. The position comes with full benefits, including immediate enrollment in our executive housing program. The salary," he paused, allowing her to find the number, "is triple your current current compensation with stock options. Sarah stared at the document, unable to speak. The salary was even higher than Innovate Corporation's offer, but that wasn't what brought tears to her eyes. It was the handwritten note at the bottom for showing us what TechVision's values truly mean. There's more. James continued, pressing a button on the conference room phone. The door opened and a facilities manager entered with a set of keys. Your new office is on this floor, and there's an executive suite reserved for you at TechVision Towers, the corporate apartments across the street. You can move in today. The reality of the moment hit her full force. No more sleeping in the car, no more washing up in public restrooms, no more choosing between lunch for herself or diapers for Emma, but more importantly, a chance to make a real difference. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Why the test? Why not just help when you saw someone in need? James leaned forward, his expression serious. Because TechVision needs leaders who maintain their integrity even when nobody's watching, who choose right over easy, who see beyond their own immediate needs to the bigger picture. He smiled. In other words, we need more people like you, Sarah. The world seemed to spin as James outlined her new role. She would oversee a team of 50 people with the power to implement changes that could affect thousands of customers and employees. But there was more. He wanted her to help develop a company-wide program for identifying and supporting employees in crisis situations, using her experience to prevent others from facing similar struggles alone. Regina, now stepping into her role as Sarah's executive mentor, began outlining the resources at her disposal, the training schedule, the team she would inherit, the projects awaiting her input. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities, improvements she dreamed of implementing while handling customer calls, changes that could make real differences in both employee and customer experiences. James watched her with knowing eyes as she began speaking, faster ideas flowing, changes to the training program, better integration between department support systems for struggling employees. He nodded encouragingly, clearly seeing what he'd recognized during his undercover observations, a natural leader who understood both systems and people. There's one condition, James added, his eyes twinkling. Well, two actually. First, you'll need to help develop our new Second Chance program, identifying and supporting employees facing personal hardships. And second, he glanced at his watch, you need to start right now. We have a board meeting in an hour, and I'd like you to share your vision for improving our customer experience systems. Sarah squared her shoulders just as she had done countless times before, difficult customer calls, but this time, instead of bracing for a challenge, she was rising to meet an opportunity. Thank you for your trust, Mr. Chin, she said, standing tall despite her worn uniform and tired eyes. I won't let you down, James, he corrected with a warm smile. And Sarah, you never have. The next hour passed in a blur as Regina helped her prepare for the board meeting, showing her to a private bathroom where a new suit in her size waited, suggesting she might want to move Emma from daycare to the executive floor's premium childcare facility, immediately introducing her to her new assistant, who already had a stack of reports ready for review. Sarah's head spun with the changes, but her mind remained clear, focused on the opportunities not just for herself and Emma but for others who might be struggling as she had been when James introduced her to the board. An hour later, her voice was steady as she outlined her vision for improving customer experience and employee support, drawing from her unique perspective of having lived both sides of the corporate divide. The board members leaned forward, engaged by her authentic insights and practical solutions. By the end of the day, Sarah stood in her new office, still struggling to process the transformation from car to corner office, but already planning how to use her position to create real change. James stopped by as she was reviewing department reports. Please don't feel you need to start everything today, he said kindly, noting the stacks of papers on her desk. But Sarah shook her head slightly, thinking of Emma. When you've been waiting for a chance to make things better, she replied, every moment counts. His smile told her she'd just confirmed his judgment, opening a new document on her now state-of-the-art computer. Sarah began typing her proposal for the Second Chance program, her experience transforming into policy, her struggles becoming stepping stones for others. Through the window she could see her old parking spot, now empty but representing both where she'd been and how far she'd come. In her new desk drawer she found a small package, inside a single coffee cup with a note from Jim. Thanks for showing us all what integrity looks like. Welcome to the team. Sarah wiped away a tear before turning back to her work. She had a lot to do, and finally the power to do it. The executive suite at TechVision Towers felt like stepping into another dimension. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, Emma cradled in her arms, both of them still processing the dramatic shift their lives had taken in mere hours. The two-bedroom apartment stretched before them, bathed in natural light from floor to ceiling, windows, its pristine surfaces and modern furnishings a stark contrast to their car's cramped interior. The movers James had arranged worked efficiently, though there wasn't much to transfer from their previous life just 2 worn suitcases of clothes, Emma's baby supplies, and a small box of treasured photos. The contrast between their old life and new one hit home when Sarah opened the master bedroom closet to find it pre-stocked with a selection of professional attire in her size, each piece carefully chosen to reflect her new executive position. Designer suits, blazers, and dresses that would have taken years to afford on her previous salary. The nursery is ready, Miss Martinez called one of the interior decorators James had hired. Sarah followed her voice to find a room that took her breath away. Soft mint green walls, a state-of-art crib, a plush rocking chair, and shelves filled with books and educational toys. Above the changing table hung a custom mobile featuring tiny silver stars and moons, a subtle reminder of the nights they'd spent counting stars through the car windows. But James hadn't just thought about their immediate comfort. Within hours of her promotion, Sarah discovered the depth of changes being set in motion. A financial advisor arrived to help her set up investment accounts and explain her stock options. A corporate concierge assisted with everything from grocery delivery services to scheduling Emma's overdue pediatrician appointments. The building's premium daycare facility, usually with a 6-month waiting list, had a spot ready for Emma the very next day. Technology arrived in waves, each delivery making their transformation more real. A top-of-the-line laptop for work, a tablet for personal use, a new smartphone already programmed with her executive contacts and calendar. Even Emma received age-appropriate educational devices carefully selected by the company's child development team. By evening, Sarah sat in her new living room watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. Emma played contentedly on a soft activity mat surrounded by more toys than she'd ever had in her life. A notification pinged on her new phone, her first executive team meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Opening her laptop, also new top of the line, Sarah began reviewing the materials James had sent over. Her position as Director of Customer Experience Innovation wasn't just a title, it came with real responsibilities and challenges. She would be overseeing a team of 50 people with the power to implement changes that could affect thousands of customers and employees. A knock at the door revealed Regina, no longer playing a role, but serving as Sarah's executive mentor. Thought you might need this, she said, holding up a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. First day as an executive can be overwhelming. Over the next hour, Regina walked Sarah through what to expect. James doesn't do anything halfway, she explained, sipping her wine. When he believes in someone, he moves mountains to help them succeed, but he also expects results. Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. The customer service department needs better integration with technical support, she said. Our training programs could be more accessible for parents working irregular hours. Regina smiled, recognizing the same determination that had caught James's attention. You're already thinking like an executive, she said, but there's one more surprise James wanted me to share. She pulled out another folder. Sarah was beginning to think. Tech vision ran on folders and life-changing documents. Inside was a proposal for a new company initiative, the Second Chance program. James wants you to head this, Regina explained. It's a comprehensive support system for employees facing personal hardships, housing assistance, emergency childcare, financial counseling. Your experience makes you uniquely qualified to shape this program. Sarah's vision blurred with tears as she read through the proposal. The program would help people exactly like her former self, talented individuals whose circumstances masked their potential. It included partnerships with local shelters, childcare providers, and financial institutions, all coordinated to provide a safety net for struggling employees. Budgets already approved, Regina added. You can start implementing changes as soon as you're ready. The transformation extended beyond their living space and work roles. James had arranged for Sarah to begin executive leadership training immediately, connecting her with mentors from various departments who could guide her transition from customer service representative to corporate leader. Her schedule for the next month appeared on her phone, meticulously planned to balance leadership development with her new responsibilities while ensuring time for Emma. The corporate apartment complex itself offered amenities that seemed surreal after months of living in their car. A children's playroom where Emma could socialize with other residents' children, a fully equipped gym with childcare services, a community room where resident executives often gathered for informal networking. Everything designed to support not just their physical needs but their social and professional integration into their new life. Later that night, after Emma was asleep in her new crib monitored by a state-of-the-art baby camera. Sarah stood at her floor-to-ceiling windows. The parking lot where they lived was visible from here, the small corner behind the recycling bin now empty. She pressed her hand against the glass, feeling the warmth of her climate-controlled apartment contrast with the cold outside. Tomorrow she would step into her new role, face new challenges, and begin building something meaningful. But tonight she allowed herself to simply feel grateful, not just for the material changes in their lives, but for having stood firm in her principles when tested. Her loyalty hadn't just been rewarded, it had been transformed into an opportunity to help others find their own path to success. The transition came with its own challenges, adapting to executive responsibilities while processing their dramatic lifestyle change required careful balance. Sarah found herself creating new routines to replace their old survival patterns. Morning cuddles in the car became story time in Emma's reading nook. Quick changes in public restrooms transformed into leisurely baths in their spa-like bathroom. Parking lot dinners evolved into cooking lessons in their gourmet kitchen, each change a step further from survival mode into thriving. James had arranged for a life coach to help Sarah navigate the emotional aspects of their transformation, understanding that such dramatic changes could be overwhelming. The coach helped her process the guilt that sometimes surfaced when she compared her new circumstances to those still struggling, a feeling that would later fuel her dedication to the Second Chance program. Her new executive assistant Michael proved invaluable, helping her balance the demands of her position with her responsibilities as a mother. He coordinated with the daycare facility, ensuring Emma's schedule aligned with Sarah's meetings, and arranged for backup care when needed. The transformation touched every aspect of their lives, but Sarah was determined to maintain the values that had brought them here. Her first executive decision was to implement a morning coffee chat where any employee could share concerns or ideas directly with her, maintaining the connection to the frontline workers that had shaped her perspective. She kept her old customer service headset in her new office, a reminder of where she'd started and the importance of understanding challenges at every level. As she prepared for bed that first night in their new home, Sarah found a small package on her nightstand. Inside was a framed photo of their old parking spot with a note from James: "Sometimes the longest journeys end exactly where they're supposed to start. Welcome home." Sarah smiled through her tears, remembering the nights spent in that spot, dreaming of a better future for Emma. Now they had that future, and more importantly the opportunity to help others find theirs too. Within hours of her promotion, Sarah found herself swept into a whirlwind of immediate changes that transformed their lives with dizzying speed. The transition team James had assembled moved with military precision, turning the empty executive suite into a fully functional home. While she attended her first leadership meetings, Emma's new premium daycare space had been prepared with the same attention to detail that characterized everything James did. The walls adorned with educational murals, toys carefully selected for developmental appropriateness, even a small nameplate on the door reading "Emma Martinez VIP Guest." Sarah's own transformation began in the executive suite's private bathroom, where a professional stylist waited to help her transition into her new role. The woman worked efficiently, turning Sarah's carefully maintained but modest appearance into that of a corporate executive. A rail of designer clothing waited, each piece selected to project authority while maintaining comfort. The stylist explained the basics of executive presence as she worked, teaching Sarah the subtle details that would help her navigate her new world. But it wasn't just about appearances. Tech Vision's HR team had already processed all necessary paperwork, expediting everything from health insurance coverage to stock options. Her new executive assistant Michael had organized her calendar for the next month, balancing immediate responsibilities with orientation and training sessions, even remembering to block out time for Emma's regular checkups and immunizations. Sarah's head spun as she reviewed the schedule on her new company phone, the device already loaded with all necessary apps and contacts. The technology transition team had arrived at her new office even before she did, setting up dual monitors, a state-of-the-art laptop, and all the tools she'd need to manage her expanded responsibilities. They'd even installed a small monitor specifically for the daycare's camera feed, allowing her to check on Emma throughout the day. Her new office itself spoke volumes about the change in their circumstances. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, including, ironically, the parking lot where they'd spent so many nights. The space had been personalized with subtle touches, a photo frame cycling through pictures of Emma, a small coffee station, even a hidden fridge stocked with healthy snacks and Emma's favorite juice boxes for when she visited. The immediate financial changes hit her inbox in waves. Confirmation of her new salary direct deposited immediately rather than waiting for the pay cycle. Signing bonus already available in her account. Stock options vesting schedules. Retirement plan adjustments. The numbers seemed surreal after months of counting pennies for diapers, but the most immediate and profound change came when the facilities manager handed her the keys to their new apartment. The corporate housing coordinator had orchestrated a rapid transformation of the space. What would normally take weeks had been accomplished in hours. Movers had already transferred their few possessions from the car, arranging them carefully in the new space, while a team of designers and organizers worked to make the apartment feel like home. Sarah stood in the doorway of Emma's new room, tears streaming as she took in the carefully crafted space. The crib with its organic mattress, the reading nook filled with books, the closet already stocked with clothes in the next 3 sizes up. Anticipating Emma's growth, the designers had even incorporated elements from their car life, transforming them into meaningful decor. The stars they used to count through the windows now part of a custom constellation map on the ceiling. Their nightly storytime routine honored with a custom bookshelf labeled Emma's Adventures. The kitchen had been stocked with everything from basic necessities to gourmet options, the refrigerator filled with fresh produce and prepared meals. A meal planning service already arranged to ensure they'd never worry about food again. The master bedroom suite offered Sarah her first real privacy in months. The walk-in closet filled with professional attire, each piece tailored to her new role. The ensuite bathroom stocked with luxury toiletries she'd only seen in magazines. But amidst all these material changes, it was the smaller details that struck Sarah most deeply. The way James had thought through every aspect of their transition. The baby proofing already completed throughout the apartment, the nightlight strategically placed remembering Emma's fear of darkness, the white noise machine identical to the one at daycare maintaining consistency in Emma's sleep routine. The corporate concierge service had arranged everything from regular housekeeping to dry cleaning pickup. Even a personal shopper was available to help Sarah build her executive wardrobe as she grew into her role. But the most immediate change wasn't physical at all. It was the weight lifted from Sarah's shoulders, the constant stress of survival replaced by the challenge of growth and opportunity. Her new team had been briefed and waited eagerly for her leadership, their enthusiasm evident in the welcome notes and small gifts that filled her office, each one representing a different aspect of her responsibilities. The technical team had prepared detailed briefings on ongoing projects, while her customer service managers had compiled reports highlighting areas for improvement, everything organized to help her hit the ground running. Regina, now officially her executive mentor, had arranged a series of informal meetings with other directors, creating an immediate support network for Sarah's transition, each leader sharing their own stories of growth within tech vision. Michael, her executive assistant, proved invaluable during these first hours, anticipating needs before they arose, ensuring Sarah could focus on absorbing her new role rather than managing logistics. He'd even arranged for Emma's pediatrician to make a house call, ensuring her medical records were updated and necessary vaccinations scheduled. The building security team had already added their biometric data to the system, programmed their access cards, and established protocols for Emma's approved caregivers. The IT department had transferred all her previous work seamlessly to her new devices while upgrading her access levels to reflect her new responsibilities. Even her old coding tutorials had been replaced with premium subscriptions and personalized instruction plans. The premium daycare facility operated on a completely different level from the standard corporate center. Emma now had access to language immersion programs, early education specialists, and social development activities, all coordinated with Sarah's schedule to maximize their time together. As evening approached, Sarah found herself in her new living room, surrounded by the trappings of their new life. Emma played happily with educational toys selected by child development experts, while Sarah reviewed materials for tomorrow's board meeting. The city lights twinkled beyond their windows, no longer distant stars viewed from a car seat, but close reminders of how far they'd come in just one day. Michael had arranged for dinner to be delivered from the executive dining room, the meal perfectly balanced for both adult and toddler nutritional needs. As Sarah tucked Emma into her new bed that night, the premium mattress and luxury linens a far cry from their car seat sleeping arrangements, she felt a profound sense of responsibility, not just for their own transition but for all the others who might be struggling as they had been. Opening her laptop one last time that evening, Sarah began drafting her vision for the Second Chance program, determined that their story would become a blueprint for helping others find their way from survival to success. The immediate changes in their circumstances were dramatic, but Sarah knew the real transformation was just beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, and new opportunities to make make a difference, but for tonight she allowed herself to sink into the comfort of their new home, grateful for the chance to prove that integrity and determination could lead to extraordinary changes. Sarah Martinez stood at the podium during TechVision's annual shareholders meeting, her confidence matching her polished executive appearance as she presented the 5-year results of her Second Chance program. The numbers on the screen behind her told a story that brought proud smiles to every face in the room, including James Jin, who sat in the front row. The transformation of both the company and countless lives evident in every metric she shared in the past 5 years. Sarah announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had lived the journey. We've helped over 300 employees transition from crisis situations to stable careers. Our retention rate for program participants is 94% and 68% have been promoted within 18 months of entering the program. But the numbers only told part of the story. The real impact lay in the individual transformations that had rippled through TechVision, creating a corporate culture that other companies now struggled to emulate. The program had evolved far beyond its initial scope, becoming a model for corporate responsibility that industry leaders studied and attempted to replicate. Sarah clicked to the next slide, showing the program's comprehensive support structure. They'd identified and assisted 75 employees facing housing insecurity, provided emergency childcare support to over 200 families, established a transit assistance program that helped employees manage commuting costs, and created a financial wellness initiative that had helped hundreds of workers build long-term stability. The innovation lay not just in the support provided but in how it was delivered. The program operated with dignity and discretion at its core. Employees could self-identify or be referred by colleagues without fear of stigma. Each participant received personalized support plans that addressed immediate needs while building toward long-term success. The results spoke for themselves. Employee satisfaction scores had risen 43% across the company. Productivity metrics showed consistent improvement, and TechVision's reputation as an employer of choice had soared, making it easier to attract and retain top talent. But Sarah's proudest achievement was the Pay It Forward initiative. She'd implemented. Every program participant who successfully transitioned became a mentor to others, creating a growing network of support and understanding throughout the company. Many of these mentors had gone on to leadership positions themselves, their experiences informing policies and practices at every level. The financial impact had exceeded all expectations. Reduced turnover alone had saved the company millions in recruitment and training costs, while improved productivity and innovation drove record profits. But the human impact proved even more significant. TechVision now boasted the highest employee engagement scores in the industry, with a workplace culture that consistently ranked among the best in national surveys. Sarah advanced to the next portion of her presentation, highlighting specific success stories. With permission, a single father who'd been living in a shelter now led the IT security team after receiving support and training through the program. A domestic violence survivor who had become a regional sales director, using program resources to rebuild her life. A veteran struggling with PTSD who now managed international client relations, each story representing dozens more behind the scenes. The program had expanded physically as well. What began as emergency housing assistance had grown into a comprehensive housing initiative. TechVision now owned several apartment complexes near its major offices, providing subsidized housing to employees in need while maintaining their dignity through an innovative cost-sharing model. The original daycare center had expanded into a network of 24-hour care facilities, supporting parents working various shifts while providing exceptional early childhood education. The mentorship network Sarah had established paired struggling employees with executives who could guide their professional growth, creating pathways to advancement that transcended traditional corporate hierarchies. Perhaps most significantly, the program had changed how TechVision approached talent development. Rather than viewing personal hardships as barriers to employment, they were now seen as experiences that could inform and enhance leadership capabilities. Many of their most innovative solutions had come from employees who had faced and overcome significant challenges. Sarah clicked through slides showing the program's evolution from basic support services to a comprehensive ecosystem of opportunity. What started in that parking lot, she said, meeting James's eyes, has become a movement that's transforming lives across the company and beyond. Industry leaders regularly visited TechVision to study popularity the program, major corporations had begun implementing their own versions, and several states were considering legislation based on their model. The program's success had led to Sarah's promotion to Senior Vice President of People and Culture, a position created specifically to expand her vision across all aspects of corporate operations. Her team had grown from the original 50 to over 300 professionals dedicated to maintaining and expanding the program's impact. But Sarah hadn't forgotten her roots. She still maintained regular coffee chats with employees, kept her old customer service headset in her office, and personally reviewed every crisis intervention request that came through the system. Her office now occupied the entire floor where she'd first met James as Jim 5 years ago, but it operated as a welcome center for employees seeking support rather than an executive suite. The walls lined with success stories and resources rather than corporate awards, though those filled another room entirely. As she concluded her presentation, Sarah shared the program's next phase: plans for satellite offices in other cities, partnerships with nonprofits and government agencies, and an innovative technology platform that would help other companies implement similar programs. The shareholders responded with enthusiastic approval, immediately voting to increase the program's budget and expand its scope. James approached the podium to stand beside her. "Remember when you used to hide your situation from everyone?" he asked quietly. Sarah laughed, adjusting her vice president badge. "Sometimes I walk by my old parking spot just to remind myself how far we've come, but it's not about me anymore," she added. "It's about creating a company where no one has to hide their struggles, where asking for help is seen as a sign of strength, not weakness, where every employee knows they're valued for their potential, not judged by their circumstances." The meeting concluded with the announcement of the program's expansion to international offices. Sarah's model would soon begin transforming lives across global operations. Her team had already begun translating materials and adapting resources for different cultural contexts. As she gathered her materials after the presentation, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from the crisis intervention team. Another family had just been identified in need of support. Without hesitation, she adjusted her schedule to meet with them personally, knowing that somewhere in their struggle lay the potential for another transformation, just like hers 5 years ago, proving that sometimes the greatest corporate assets aren't found in balance sheets but in the resilience of those who refuse to give up even in their darkest hours.